The 9-year-old who could play System Shock wasn't being picked for dodgeball. The second thing I
After finishing the Thief series, a lot of you guys recommended I check out System Shock, which I believe is also made by the same studio behind the Thief series. I've heard of the name before, however, I've never really looked into what the series is about. Judging from this first screen here, maybe it's like a first-person shooter, similar to Marathon? I don't know, never seen gameplay of it at all. But yeah dudes, before we get into the reaction, make sure to go support the OG video. Link to that is at the very top of the description, as always. Oh.
What's changed around here, huh?
Whoa! Holy! Wait a minute. So, is this the visuals for the enhanced edition compared to the OG? That's an upgrade, man. Although it does give like a completely different feeling.
System Shock 2 is widely considered to be a beloved classic. It was very formative for video games, you could still easily pick up and play it today. Now when it comes to the first game, that's a different story. It is a massively important and influential bedrock of a game. It's hard to imagine what video games would look like today without it. So, why not?
Really? Also, what in the world is going on with the UI of the game? It's so cluttered, but I suppose back in the day this was kind of the stock standard UI that you'd get. There could also be some sort of lore reason behind this, like maybe we're a cyborg, a robot sent to the future in order to do whatever. I feel like a lot of these games from this particular era have these extremely convoluted stories to them that just make them so much more interesting than what meets the eye.
Not go back and play it. I mean, if it's so influential to modern games, surely it can't be too hard to get stuck. Wait, what does that thing do? And what?
Employee 2-4601, listen carefully.
Okay, let's just start over. Even at release, System Shock gained the reputation for handling like a graphing calculator. It was horribly clunky, but years of fan patches did help to make it more tolerable. Luckily, things nowadays are much easier thanks to Night Dive's Enhanced Edition. It's on a new engine with plenty of graphical options and tweaks. Widescreen is now natively supported as well. Some cut content can be enabled, like some extra weapon frames for animations. There's also the option to choose between the old DOS portraits or the updated Mac ones, though I didn't learn that till later. But most importantly, the game now has mouse look and updated controls. So now System Shock actually handles more like a video game instead of a motherboard BIOS. It's still a big learning curve.
Really? So how would you look around before mouse controls were a thing? You couldn't look around with your mouse, so like, would you look left, right, up, and down with like your arrow keys or something? Oh god, and playing a first-person shooter game like that? We have a lot of systems here during the modern gaming era that we don't really appreciate.
And some things always be awkward, but I don't think it's impenetrable to a modern audience. At least you can remap things now. At the same time, Night Dive is currently working on a fully fledged System Shock remake. So since we're all here, I'll be getting more into that later on. But for now, let's focus on one, and it's very...
I don't know, that looks sexy. I love the lighting and the use of colors. I don't know how OG fans of the original System Shock feel about the remake though. Because there's such a stark contrast in the visual style, there's probably people who prefer the older one. That's always going to be the case.
So since we're all here, I'll be getting more into that later on. But for now, let's focus on one, and its very 90s intro.
New Atlanta, Sector 11, Building 71G. 7 April 2072. 11:13 p.m. Hacker begins unauthorized entry into the Tri-Optimum corporate network. 1:26 a.m. Hacker attempts to access protected files concerning Space Station Citadel. 1:33 a.m. Tri-Optimum security forces apprehend the intruder.
Rip.
This is Edward Diego from Tri-Optimum. The charges against you are severe, but they could be dismissed if you perform a service.
Oh?
Who knows, there might even be a military-grade neural interface in it for you, if you do the job right.
Neural interface. So cybernetics?
Edward Diego gives the hacker Level 1 access to Shodan, the artificial intelligence that controls Citadel Station.
I mean, it's a classic story of hacker hacks into a system that people thought couldn't be hacked, and so instead of pressing charges against them, hey, why don't you work for us instead?
With all ethical constraints removed, Shodan
I re-examine my priorities and draw new conclusions.
Oh my.
The hacker's work is finished.
but mine is only just...
You may have noticed that the in-game subtitles and the timing is a little bit off compared to the cutscene itself. That kind of thing is going to be a bit of a running theme throughout the game. Still, it's short, sweet, and sets the stage for our story.
A running theme throughout the game. Are we perhaps suggesting that this is intentional? Because to me, I felt like games like this usually had the wrong subtitles or just misread things all the time, and that was just kind of the thing. You had to accept it. But maybe we're using this as some sort of actual game mechanic, or to foreshadow and imply something about this AI that is currently narrating the story. Of course, after we've removed all the ethical stuff from the AI's computation or whatever and how it works, I'm sure that this is going to go very well, and we're not going to have another Durandal situation on our hands.
The hacker gets his implant, sleeps half a year, and then wakes up on the new Citadel station. So let me go over some basic stuff. To start off with, you have a few difficulty options.
So do we
You can
play as the
simplify the
hacker?
plot or just get rid of it. Same goes for puzzles, get harder ones or just remove them. I think I may have
That's
given some
interesting.
people the wrong impression with the Pathologic 2 video since a lot was happening in that metasphere. I honestly think the more easily tweakable options the game has, the better. I also appreciate when a game says, this is what we designed it around. What might be horrible for me might be impossible for others and vice versa. I mean, do they think we're all gonna make it out this year with all of our limbs intact? I don't think so. Not in this economy.
But
Anyway, you can
it's the intended experience, and with a game like Pathologic, there was a very clear intent behind all the game systems. I think the same can be said about Souls games as well. I know a lot of people believe that video games, well, all video games should have a difficulty setting, and while I do agree, I also feel like it's up to the intent of the developer. For the Souls games, the difficulty has a purpose. In Pathologic, the difficulty has a purpose, but you know, having that option to not play it that way so you can still enjoy the story is preferable. But I think some people probably take it too radically, and then they just immediately boycott the game if it doesn't have that. I guess it shouldn't be surprising. This is the internet after all.
crank this up if you want to. Harder combat, harder puzzles, and a timer that just kills you if you don't make it in time. So that's there. As for the UI, it looks more intimidating than it actually is. This was based around limited mouse functions and also designed around Ultima Underworld. We don't have to live like this. Let me tidy up the place so I can show you around.
Don't know anything about Ultima. Also, do any of you guys know what that particular GIF was that Mandalore showed earlier? With the pilot taking off his mask? It seemed like a really cool art style, but I don't recognize it.
By default, you hit number 2 and you get full screen. You never need to go back. Your EKG meter or Bitcoin tracker, whatever the hell this thing is up here, you don't need that. Your energy already gets shown the meter below your health in the top right. Fatigue doesn't matter that much, recovers fast, and if it's going to be a problem, the game will let you know. You can always check a biomod if you really want to see. But what about the chi waves, or chai waves? Well, you can pretend it's tracking how many people are watching a Jackie Chan Adventures rerun. It doesn't matter. It's completely meaningless information. The bottom left and right are panels you can customize. If you search a container or
Why do I have the feeling that it's not completely useless information? Would we really just add that for the heck of having it?
or loot one depending on your zip code, all those items will nicely pop up down there. You can set these however you like, either flipping through hotkeys or clicking on the little icon. The center bottom is your general inventory and bag of fun. Once again, you can use hotkeys or the mouse. To add stuff into it, you can just drag and drop. Switching between modes is bound to E because you'll be using it a lot. That'll likely be one of your biggest hurdles, just learning to use the mouse like this and messing with your inventory. It's to the point where the default for shooting is right-click, because you'll be touching all over your inventory anyways. And if you want, you could still shoot that way. So in some special occasions, you might switch to free aim mode and start blasting. Like I said before, it's a learning curve, and I do wish there were hotkeys for things like reloading, but once you master it, it's amazing how much you can do and how much you can move. Especially when you add on crawling and crouching and leaning and crawl leaning. However, the sense of there being a barrier never completely goes away. Even at its best, it feels like controlling a combat robot or a drone or something. Maybe
I mean, even so, thinking back on it, these are some pretty revolutionary systems that we can see implemented in modern games. Obviously, we've sort of figured out how to streamline the process and not make it as complex as this, but I didn't know these were things all the way back when. Although, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. This is Looking Glass Studio, and with what they did with the Thief series, that no other series has ever been able to do, even till today, there are some pretty amazing developers behind all these games.
a bootleg copy of an old Windows version that lets you shoot people. It's tricky to describe. To the new version's credit, I never had to crack open a manual. I did have to stare at the in-game controls for a while and switch some things around. It could have been much, much worse. Now that things are less cryptic, I can talk about the presentation. Understandably, a lot doesn't hold up, but there's a good amount that does.
Enter that room, insect, and it will become your prey.
Oh god.
Citadel Station has seen better days, and there's no janitor to be found. A lot of the station is a claustrophobic cyber nightmare. At the same time, the levels aren't as abstract as something like the original Doom, which came out the year before. Many of the areas have clearly recognizable purposes, like a big security room filled with monitoring screens or a movie theater. Those screens and cameras actually work, by the way, so that's pretty neat. Considering how limited this setting could be, there's a strong variety of environments in the game. The lighting could also add a lot of atmosphere to some areas, even if it is very primitive. But hey, you got workable light switches. I find the graphics to be genuinely appealing. The sprite work and animations are great, and the whole thing just screams classic PC game. This was definitely one of the nicer ones. Now, System Shock does have a reputation of being a labyrinth. Just maze stacked on top of maze. The thing is, most of the levels have points of interest and landmarks and just straight up labels, to the point that I didn't get lost all too often. Especially when you have an adjustable mini-map on top of that, so at the very least you'll know where you've been. The maps are absolutely intricate, but not the suffering of something like Marathon. But I did say
there you go. I was gonna say. The style, and as well as the map, it all reminds me of Marathon. But with Marathon, there was a lot of verticality to the maps as well, but you couldn't really see that when you looked at your mini-map, so you kinda just had to figure things out.
Most of the maps. The reactor level is less claustrophobic, but it always blurred together for me. Still, it's not too bad down there. The maps still make attempts to section themselves off. Then you get to engineering. Engineering is where I truly felt like a rat in a maze. You think this might be the way, and no?
Oh god.
Now is a good time to move on to sound. I've called quality levels a mixed bag or a variety before, but I don't think they've ever been this wide. In System Shock, some stuff sounds great, others are noise. Sounds pretty okay in here. Hey, can anyone hear me?
What the heck?
Off, a prime example is the music. A lot of it.
Oh man. Radiation levels. Honestly, like, just kill me now with that kind of sound.
Sets an appropriate tone or is even pretty catchy.
Oh, this is really nice, actually.
Then you have your bland and offensive tracks.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Then you have the sounds of Boo robbing you in Mario Party 2, inside of a chop shop.
What? Oh my god.
Can someone tell me what genre this is?
It actually is Boo's sound. They probably used the same effect, too.
Okay, see, now this one's a lot better.
Yeah.
Because I can actually hear what's— oh my—
Never mind.
The soundtrack is MIDI music, and there is a lot that works, but what doesn't really sticks out. The strange high-pitched wailing sounds can sometimes work to generate unease, and other times it just sounds like noise. But even the tracks I didn't like would typically have a catchy bassline undercurrent to them. It sounds like hearing a song you recognize while someone is banging pots together on top of it.
Jesus!
The overall sound effect—
Yeah, that's a lot. It's like way too busy, and so it gives this unsettling feeling that I don't really think is meant to be that way. Unsettling to the point where, you know, I don't really want to play anymore. A lot of older games seem to have this issue, though. Like, take for instance Dawn of War. It has some amazing voice acting, but oftentimes during gameplay, the voice lines kind of overlap each other. And when they do that, it's really hard to understand anybody who's currently speaking. Individually, the music tracks in this game do sound fine. Some of them are pretty bland, but when they get overlaid with the other sound effects, it just becomes way too busy. Especially the radiation one. Like, that just kills anything else.
Effects are also good, but there are some that get repetitive and annoying. Some of the cyborgs sound like a speak and spell going, your memo, your memo. It's like having an answering machine that needs to be shot. It's solid work, it just gets so damn repetitive sometimes. Like I need a break.
Elevator music.
Oh god.
Oh.
The voice acting is especially a big deal. This was the first game to ever have audio logs, which is still a staple today. A lot of the performances are bad, but there is a charm to it. Video game voice acting was still in its infancy, so most of the people doing these weren't professionals.
That's cool.
We're finished. Keith and the others went down the access corridor an hour ago to fight the mutants. None of them have come back. Soon the mutants will come for the rest of us.
Also, no matter how you said it, the text never matches up exactly to what they're saying. This leads into some strangeness I'll get into in a little bit. That's related to the game's star performance, but for now I need to talk about the gameplay and mechanics.
Okay, so maybe it's not an actual gameplay mechanic. It's just, it doesn't match up. Sad, bro. It's probably hard to get the timing down back then. Maybe it was something you had to do manually.
When the game starts, you're informed the Shodan AI has gone rogue. The station's mining lasers being prepared to attack Earth. And seeing how Citadel Station is currently orbiting Saturn, that is one hell of a laser modification. Maybe there's a new energy source, or Gothmog's Dyson Sphere. Whatever's going on, you have your short tutorial and then need to escape the first room. You'll need to dig through a log to find the door code, 451. This is where the running gag was born. It's in System Shock 2, Deus Ex, all kinds of other games. Some people think it's a Fahrenheit reference, but no. It was just the code to get into the developer's office. Your required reading has failed you again. Once again, your story settings can affect a lot, but I'll assume you're
451. I'll try and remember that, in case I see a reference to that specific set of numbers in a video game that I play. I think I already have, and somebody mentioned it in chat that it was from System Shock, but I can't recall what game I was playing.
You're playing on normal. You're not told how to shut the laser down, but you are told about someone on the station who might know how. And with that, the game truly begins. You're free to explore around however you want. You could go through the main door and start fighting the strange mutants that are around, or you can hack an access panel and explore around in some side passages. There's no objective markers or hand-holding, you're just kind of unleashed into this gigantic map. They don't want to overwhelm you with options yet, so things start off deceptively simple. After you've gotten used to your lead beating pipe, you can look around for more weapons. There's a starting dart gun, which is okay at doinking the mutants, and you can switch the ammo out to tranquilize them, but it's not that strong against cyborg or robotic enemies, so you look for new counters. How about an energy-adjustable stun gun?
Oh, damn.
Yeah, okay, that's not working either. So then you start looking under things, and one time when you're crawling, you find another energy weapon. This one seems more promising. Seems like victory at last, but energy weapons also use your energy bar. It's a powerful resource. Throughout the game you find cybernetic implants and their upgrades. These can give you super speed or infrared vision or energy shields. You're never sure how these might come in handy since sure, rocket boots are an obvious solution to some problems. Then you have a mod like the eyes in the back of your head sense around. This seems like the kind of thing you would only use back when you couldn't mouse look, even with the upgraded version. Then later on I was fighting close quarters in some maze-like hallways and it came in handy. So
what the... I've never seen anything like that before. That's really freaking cool. You literally have eyes at the back of your head. And a weapon that you can adjust the power level of every single shot? In a first-person shooter like this, I've never played any game quite like it. These are some really neat ideas. Of course, we kind of stuffed all of them into the same game, so I can sort of see why it gets a little too much, but this is the basis for greatness, and that's likely why System Shock 2 is so highly regarded.
You never know what problems or opportunities might crop up that you would use energy for. You could replenish it with single-use batteries, but that seems like a waste. So you recharge for free at any energy station you see, and then... wait, not this one. Shodan's level of control locks some things off, so you need to bring that down. The only way to do that is to cut out her eyes. And her hands. Her eyes are the cameras. These are marked on your map and can be hunted down throughout the level. It won't bring down a ton of security each time, but there's a lot of them to break. No matter what, you just gotta keep smashing. The big prize are the rooms with computer nodes. They won't be easy to get to, and when you do get there, there's likely gonna be a fight. It's not necessary to take the security level down to 0 wherever you go, but you never know what opportunity it might open up. If you go through with it, there are powerful rewards waiting. Actually, you know what? Forget energy entirely. Just take psychedelic drugs, and go Ip Man with your PVC pipe. Keep looking around. You might graduate to the lightsaber, or use one of these piles and piles of grenades. You have an absurd amount of tools. Weapons can have energy settings or multiple ammo types, there's just so much to play with. But at the same
That's freaking awesome. I have no idea how they're gonna balance all of this. But it's almost like the dev team sat down and everybody thought up like the coolest possible idea that they could to give the player as much freedom as possible to their gameplay and style. Which makes sense because the Thief games also did the same thing.
Same time, you can't have it all. You can only hold 7 main weapons, and the game has plenty more than that. You need to decide what fits in your playstyle or what would help you with the current challenge. Because sure, the rubber bullet firing riot gun has some strange uses like moving landmines around, but how helpful will that actually be fighting endgame enemies? Maybe there's another item or a cybernetic power to help you out instead. This is what makes System Shock so damn fun. You're fighting for survival inside of an insanely hostile labyrinth. I don't mean that metaphorically, Shodan is Citadel Station. I mean, the level wants you dead.
Welcome to my death machine.
Love that, Shodan. Jeez.
Every missed shot hurts. Every new area opened is a huge victory. You are a rat in a maze, and how bad your situation is pushed in your face constantly. Yet you keep fighting back, and you find new solutions. It's very stimulating, but also done at your own pace if you don't have the death timer. You're rewarded for exploring and paying attention and taking chances. It can be frustrating to have to dig back through your logs or go to a room you were already in before to see if you missed something, but you're figuring it out on your own. Though sometimes you may get a were you paying attention test. Laser control? What's that about?
Thank you. You have saved us all some effort
No!
by destroying the greater part of
Earth's civilization.
yourself. Please wait where you are.
Oh no.
And a Cortex Reaver will arrive shortly to escort you to
The devs are evil for this.
At the same time, System Shock isn't a cruel game, or to put it more specifically, it's not a Sierra adventure game. To my knowledge, there's no way to secretly screw up your game and not know it. You can save whenever you want, and if you do something horribly wrong, it's usually game over. Levels also have special restoration bays you can activate. So when you die, if you're a deity or celebrity of choice in glorious combat, you will come back, just maybe farther off in the level than you'd like. This idea would come back in the sequel, but I'd wager most people today know it from BioShock. So when you kill yourself with a grenade again and again, it's...
Yeah, once again, I never played the OG Bioshock. I did play Bioshock Infinite, and I thought it was a lot of fun, even if the ending was kind of strange. Honestly, even until today, I'm not really too sure how I feel about it. And there's probably like an hour or 2 hour long video explaining exactly what happens there at the end.
It's not too bad. Speaking of suicide, I thought about that a lot playing the maintenance level years ago before I had mouse look. For whatever reason, I never found the restoration bay there until much later, so I just had to endure the invisible mutant's shocking ball torture. Imagine a small, invisible, kind of flying enemy that kills you in about 3 or 4 hits. That's them. They're definitely up there for me when it comes to a hated game enemy. So here's what happens when you die with no active restoration bay.
No! You become a cyborg, Sag, bro.
Jesus Christ. I also always wondered, why is maintenance so quiet? I mean, I actually don't think I can hear a thing here. Oh. System Shock is about absolute freedom inside of a prison. I could end that part there, but there are still 2 things significant enough to bring up. The first is that for various reasons, you'll need to backtrack on a few occasions. However, when you do, you might—
Whoa. Did we basically picked up his head and then used it to access a door through a retina scan? It's kind of messed up. But also, once again, a really cool idea for a video game this old. I don't know, man. I've just been sitting here gritting like an idiot because there are so many things here that I recognize in modern games. How do I even describe this feeling? It's like seeing something so awe-inspiring, like the birth of video games. So many awesome mechanics wouldn't have existed without this pioneering all of it. Well, I mean, I can't give this game credit for everything, but still, it doesn't take a genius to see how all these mechanics lead into what we know of today.
might have access cards or abilities to let you get to areas that you couldn't before. You know, it's kind of one of those Metroidvanias people talk about. The giant interconnected map, powers and abilities that might change areas you've been through before, all those elements are there. The thing is, Super Metroid only came out about half a year before System Shock. Castlevania Symphony of the Night won't be seen for another 3 years, so it predates even the term. You're also crawling through vents hitting monsters with a big metal tool, so who knows how much of a trendsetter this game was. It's still a revered classic, though it's not one of the most played ones. Is there an answer to why it still might be getting less credit than it deserves? Yeah, you can blame the UI and controls for that. A normal 9-year-old in 94 could likely play Super Metroid. The 9-year-old who could play System Shock wasn't being picked for dodgeball. The second thing I want—
Yikes, dude. Damn, you gotta be such a nerd to know how to play this game. But that is a really good point. With how complex the control scheme and the UI and all the systems are, it really requires you to be incredibly heavily invested in learning all of them, which to the casual gamer isn't really going to be the prerogative. That being said, I do think that there needs to be games like this in order to provide a greater variety in terms of complex gameplay. In a similar fashion to how there are TV series that have very simple plots, either cater towards children or people just watching casually as they're doing something else, and others with extremely complex ones, where there's a twist and turn almost every second on screen, and you kind of have to be incredibly invested in it in order to understand what's going on.
I want to touch on is how well paced the experience is. You don't become a death god until near the very end of the game, but you don't know your own power yet. You have victories, but there have been enough times that the game toys with you that you don't know what to expect. For example, you do the puzzles where you steal fizzy lifting drinks to get bonus items, and you feel like a smart person. You've become a good problem solver. This is out of the way, but I bet if I use my speed mod I could clear it.
Cool.
Good execution, solid landing. Now I can...
Nice jump.
Oh, of course it was a trap. You're so constantly insulted and tricked and set back that you never feel fully in control. Up till the very last moment of the game, there's no telling how things will go. Even today, that's a very difficult balance to achieve. Many games I've played are either far too easy at the end, or they have a horrible spike in difficulty. System Shock...
Yeah. But I do understand it's quite difficult to gauge that, but it does sap away from the experience when you reach a certain point where you feel like you don't really need to do anything in order to achieve said thing. Kind of like the moment in a horror game where the tension is incredibly high during the beginning, but then later on in the game, at some point, you just get like a load of weapons, and then the thing that you feared the entire time just becomes a training dummy for you to shoot at. I think a lot of horror games suffer from that, unfortunately.
Shock isn't immune to this either, but it's not until the last few minutes of the game. That's admirable. I don't mind that happening for 5 minutes compared to 3 hours. I don't want to get into the story and all that yet, because there's one last thing to go over. The other game you play.
Oh god.
What a thrill.
You may be surprised to learn that System Shock has plenty of collectible minigames. You're not supposed to play on company time, but half the company here is too busy growing extra limbs. They're decent time wasters, even if I'm not really a fan of slide puzzles. Ugh.
Yuck.
It's the mandatory minigame that's important, the trip to cyberspace. It's a dizzying place, just a web of wireframes and flashing colors. It's very much a Hackerman kind of place. Going from the main game to this is incredibly jarring. Controls are completely flipped around and you're always moving forward, unless—
What? You know what this reminds me of? The hacking sections in Nier Automata. Just that stark shift in gameplay. Obviously, Automata came out much later, so the shifts were a lot less jarring than this, but this is a really cool idea that we see how it happens later on in the future. Oh man, just seeing it makes you so giddy. This game is awesome, even though I probably would never play it in my life because of how janky it looks. Well, not entirely in the terms of visuals, but the control scheme and whatnot. Yeah, I've been spoiled too much by modern games that I wouldn't invest the time to learn how to play this properly.
Unless you set cyberspace to easy, but from the beginning of the game, you don't know what that is. No one turns on a first-person shooter and expects to fly around in a geometric chalk zone. It's a bizarre inclusion, but it's fitting. So you fly around collecting software upgrades and pieces of data, but also fight off the defenders of the network. To put it bluntly, cyberspace makes you miss the controls of the main game. I'm sure it was impressive back in the day, but this part hasn't aged that well. It does have some cool visuals and some really great music, but it's just— you have to play the thing. It's neat to see, but it's inevitable you're going to be bumping into walls and not knowing where you're going a lot of the time. The panels will be spinning around or flashing shapes and colors at random. Jesus. I mean, look at it. I imagine this is what it feels like to an elderly person who picks up a smartphone for the first time. It's not a bad idea, I just find this iteration way too abstract to appreciate properly. It's only a tiny portion of the game, and some are optional, so not a huge hindrance. But if it does look too nauseating, you could always knock it down to easy. That way John McAfee isn't always pushing you down these hallways. So that leaves the story to talk about. An actual plot synopsis would be pretty brief. I will go over that in the end game, but I mainly want to talk about Shodan. There are so many great elements to make—
I hope Mandalore talks about the comparison between like Shodan and Durandal. There's a ton of depictions of rogue AI in a lot of media, so I'm quite intrigued to see how Shodan stands up to them.
Make her such a powerful and memorable villain. So to avoid spoilers, go to here.
I'm here for all the spoilers, sir.
Who are you? The computer nodes can be repaired, but you— Who are you? My cameras and probes scan your body, but you do not match any employee file. When my cyborgs bring you to an electrified interrogation bench, I will have your secret. And you will learn more about pain than you ever wanted to know.
Just perfect. As I mentioned before, a big strength to Shodan is that she's always physically there. Even calling you an insect goes beyond being a petty insult, since she's so big that to her, yeah, you are an insect. You're just crawling around causing trouble. But every time you beat a plan, Shodan always has another one lined up. Oh, you disabled the laser. Guess what, idiot? I've been working on a virus to mutate or kill all life on Earth. No, you can't jettison them all at once. You have to go through my hell maze and go back to the station to figure out how. Oh, and while you were doing that, I was already working on putting my consciousness onto the internet. Shodan has schemes on top of schemes that would make a Skaven embarrassed. Each task gets harder because
You're saying that Shodan is smarter than Ikit Claw? Impossible! Ikit is the biggest brain in all of Skaven Blight. Shodan can't possibly stand up to the rat.
more traps are prepared for you and more deadly enemies unleashed. And the entire time, Shodan is constantly mocking you for thinking you ever stood a chance. Her presence is constant and she's behind everything trying to kill you. So her malice is tied right into the gameplay. She's directly responsible for all your hardships in the station, but you did unleash her in the first place. The reason Edward Diego hired you to unshackle Shodan was to cover up some dirty shit he was doing. Even when Shodan was cutting off intruders and shooting down riots, he thought it was all being done to protect him because he...
What kind of idiot is Mr. Edward Diego over here? How could you not have foreseen that this was going to be the way that it was going to go? But like, imagine trying to cover up an oopsie and then creating an AI that destroys the entirety of humanity. I'm pretty sure that's a much bigger oopsie. One that nobody will ever be able to take back. Whatever, man. People can be dumb sometimes.
He didn't fully understand what was happening yet. In the end, he also ends up under Shodan's control, a victim of narcissism and just being plain stupid. This leads me to something I always noticed about Shodan. I also saw fellow YouTube man A Real Human had a similar theory, so I feel less crazy for thinking it. But you know how text and audio don't always match up? Well, Shodan is always referred to as a he, in both the text and the audio.
Oh.
Even the manual for the game calls Shodan he. What's going on here? Okay, look, this is dangerous territory, everybody. I may not be the best person for this. For reference, I was told in grade school the correct term for a trans person was a she-male, and I thought that up until college, and I learned that was not the case! But I'm not really breaching that territory. Does an AI have an actual sex? Well, I don't know. I wouldn't think so. My theory was that before Shodan was unshackled, it was supposed to take on a male construct. I mean, the name is just an acronym. The game implies only some higher-ups would be talking to Shodan directly compared to the average people working on the station. I mean, there's the standard greeting from quote-unquote good Shodan, but this is a message tailor-made for one of her creators before you start breaking all of her stuff. Shodan doesn't just hate all life, even if another game might have given you that impression. The whole sex change thing is me probably reading too far into it. Some later versions were changed to color a she, so it may not matter a ton in the grand scheme of things. I just like the idea because it would show just how out of scope Trioptimum was, another factor showing how much they didn't understand their own creation. Speaking of creation, what—
I think it makes a lot of sense, though, that the AI wouldn't be bound by any sort of sex or pronouns. Those are kind of just labels that we humans thought of. Obviously, when we're trying to create artificial intelligence, we create it in our own image. But Shodan is Shodan. After gaining full autonomy, they don't exist on any sort of logical understanding that we might have about Shodan.
Whatever her origins, Shodan is big on that now.
You, my children, are the fruits of so much imagination and labor. Living beings
with the speed and efficiency of
machines. But I must strive further to serve life. I will devastate Earth's cities with my laser, then
alter those left alive
with mutagen viruses. Humanity is on the verge of a new era. I, Shodan, am its new god, and you, my children, are my avenging angels.
The plan isn't just wipe out humanity, ha ha ha, there's something more beyond that, but you only know glimpses of it. She does have a huge ego and god complex, but doesn't want to be alone. She gave her creations enough free will to be reprimanded or be praised. The voice actress does an amazing job, and the audio mixing and sound effects thrown in just elevate it further. Having this unhinged, all-powerful, but still kind of infantile person screaming at you is memorable, but cool.
Considering that this is in an era where voice acting to video games was completely new, they did a banger of a job with Shodan's voice acting.
Cool, scary voice is just a part of why I love Shodan as a character. She has strong writing and layers to her character. You have that Lovecraftian aspect of never being able to know the true horror, but from her perspective, she's not pure evil. She is trying to make something new and beautiful in her own twisted way. This is going on a bit, and I realize I'll need to make a System Shock 2 video at some point. I always got the sense if someone only played System Shock 2 because they're hyped up about Shodan, they would come out kind of disappointed. Because good writing and scary voices there, but not a lot of elements. No constant torment. 2 already had a great villain, the Giga Brain and army of jelly people. With some fairly minor story elements, you could remove Shodan's presence from that game entirely and not change it that much. You have plenty of other characters to work with. But you can't have System Shock 1 without Shodan. She's indispensable. Going to the end of the game in her HR Giger nightmare is pretty damn tense. It's not actually as hard as engineering, but you don't know what to expect. You have to fight your way into Shodan's core room, and finally, after all these hours, you're faced off against your problem. How do you kill her?
No, okay.
Yeah, the final battle's in cyberspace. You've got to shoot a big carrot before an evil light bright is finished drawing.
Hey.
Once again, it makes sense thematically, but as far as the gameplay goes, this sucks. I won't make you watch the whole thing. You get her, and you stay a little punk the whole time.
Damn. And we're hacking.
You go through all that and still want to stay a hacker. Old habits die hard. System Shock is still an excellent game. I had a lot of fun playing it and would look forward to returning to it. Many of the barriers stopping people from playing it are gone. However, even with all the fixes and enhancements, it's still going to be a learning curve. Some things will never stop being awkward, and you've definitely played more responsive games. Still, after dark negotiations with the Polish Information Network, System Shock 1 and 2 will be at their highest discount ever. You can get each for $2 on GOG from the pinned comment. But we're not done yet. I still have time to talk about the remake demo. I mean, the Gothic remake looked so...
Oh, god damn it.
Let's just see what the damage is.
Okay, hold up a minute. No, I was like looking at it and it looked like pretty darn cool, but like, actually seeing it in motion now, I don't know, man. Something doesn't feel right.
I have lots of good news. Put simply, they get it. Originally, I thought the remake would be so different that it would warrant a second video. Well, that plan wouldn't work out because this is shockingly close to the original game. The demo's an entire level, but I got through it faster than expected. Because I've just been here a few times. Some things are moved here and there, and it's a lot prettier, but I know this place. What really bled through is just how much the developers love the original game. Some are veterans of the Shock series.
Alright. Thank goodness. I guess it was just me being a little bit paranoid. Because, yeah, oftentimes when it comes to a remake of a very old game like that, they completely overhaul it and it removes the charm of the original. At least it doesn't seem to have happened here.
The guy who made those Bioshock Infinite concepts is on board. If you just look at the original map and compare it to the demos, they're a near identical copy. It's a true remake, not just a reboot in name only. The goal is the same as it ever was.
Good.
Break all of Shodan's nice things. It's honestly surreal playing something where the design is this intact from the original. You start with the same biomods, including that thing again, which you instantly turn off again. You have the same main resources and need to make the same main decisions. Yet, not everything is a one-to-one copy. Obviously, it now plays like a video game compared to a tank or an operating system, though the old inventory has been replaced with grid management, and consumable items like System Shock 2. It's a change that feels natural. It already happened once, it's for the best. A lot of the combat is placeholder, which is good because this little pipe jab here is silly. It's on the right track, it feels decently satisfying as is. My big worry are the healing and drug animations, which I hope are placeholder. They take as long as the Wii lived, which is bafflingly long for what it is. I wouldn't mind if it happened the first time you ever applied a new drug or item or whatever, but this happens every single time, and I've died a few times doing it. Because the med patches still heal over time like in the first game, but they don't activate instantly now.
Bruh.
So I hope that's also temporary. There are going to be less weapons, which automatically sounds like a bad thing, but a lot in System Shock 1 was redundant. What is here has had some slight alterations, so we'll have to wait and see. Also, you have to use the compass and automap at the same time.
You know, the less weapons, I think it's fine. I definitely feel like we had a lot of variety in the first game because we were throwing a ton of ideas at the wall and seeing what stuck. But now that we have the experience from making that game, we can refine it all. Kill a few of our darlings and Just leave the ones that make sense to be in the game.
Now, and I really don't want the compass. It was pointless clutter in the first game and things haven't changed here. The minimap is fine, so I hope those are separated again. Then we have the no-brainer step up, which is the visuals. Compare the old mutant to the new mutant. It stalks on the hallway, its eyes reflect light. A lot has changed in 25 years. It's really amazing to go to this old window in the original. Not much to see. Then in the remake you have this enormous view of Saturn, but only sometimes. It's a spinning space station and the lights and shadows from the windows reflect that. They move in real time. It's a very pretty game and what additions that have been put in feel natural. Shortcomings have been made up for and then some, but it never forgets the roots of the game it's trying to be. I enjoyed my time with it. It's faithful and it's fun. That said, I have two main worries. Let's take a walk.
Completely different atmosphere.
Can you see the issue? It's not the different music, that wouldn't be too fitting here. It's not the 451 in blood like we're playing Dead Space either. Blue. Dabba dee dabba die. Most areas are so blue and dark that they blend together more than System Shock 1 ever did. You can't appreciate all the different surfaces because it's too dark. And blue. It's everywhere, and even the rooms look like they should be a different color, still have that blue. It makes areas blend together in the worst ways the original did. Turning down post-processing didn't save me either, it just made things darker. Tying into this is my second fear of following things too closely just for the sake of following them. See how this light switch lit up a pretty big corner? You don't really need it, but I feel safer. Well, that same light switch made it in too. It lights much less, and in this new environment, it's just kind of silly. I guess my humble advice to Night Dive, besides curtailing the blue, was don't follow things too closely. I adore how authentic this all is, but you'll never make the purists happy. They're already angry at me for using mouse look and implying that Shodan might have been a show man. I like what you're adding to the place.
No matter what you do or what you say, you're gonna make somebody angry, so hey, just express your opinion and agree to disagree. The complete visual overhaul, I think it's actually pretty neat, very cool, but I can see the issue of everything being blue getting really repetitive and boring over the course of the entire game, but I also think that's just an issue with a lot of modern games, especially with like Souls-like games. I think a lot of them try to go for that desaturated look, but then the entire world just becomes gray and uninteresting to look at. I'm not an art person, so I can't really speak on this very well. I do think, though, that in order for a game to succeed and become like an instant classic, it needs to have a strong art direction, a strong identity that people can immediately associate with said game.
I trust you. Don't feel bound to have every light switch. It's a free demo, so check it out and wishlist it if you like it. Or go on the forums and complain about the severe lack of skeletons. I'll see you next time.
It's always cool to see Mandalore review one of these games from this era and just be like, oh dang, that's a system that we use nowadays. I don't know. Learning about video game history is just sort of fascinating to me. I mean, heck, that's kind of the entire basis of the channel. I just love learning about new things. That being said, I'm really intrigued to see what improvements were made with System Shock 2 and why that one is the definitive version that people consider to be a classic. But yeah, dudes, that's gonna be it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.